Sometimes there's a ton, and then sometimes there's a crap ton. We are in the crap ton society at this very moment. Guys, good to be with you. Welcome to the show, presented by Americans for Prosperity, americansforprosperity.org, economic liberty, free speech. That is what it's all about right there. I'm Tony Katz, in case you didn't know. It's good to be with you. I couldn't choose just one. Sometimes you just do one topic and you're solid. It was a tremendous weekend. It was a tremendous weekend because there are these fights, some that people set up for themselves and failed greatly at. Some of them are just media kind of fights. You know, they're not real, right? The DeSantis-Trump fight is real only that they're both running for president, even though DeSantis hasn't in any way declared yet. So I don't know why you would fight, but when DeSantis puts out messaging like he did you not see this ad from Ron DeSantis? This is an ad on guns, and just in the wake of the NRA show, which took place in my beloved Indianapolis, and it went off without a hitch, and hopefully Indy made a crap ton of money. That's certainly my hope. Anytime a convention comes to town, I just hope the money ends up here. Have a good time, spend your money, go home. That's all I can ask. Simple. It's like when you come to visit. Come to visit, spend your money, go home. That's all there is. Did you see this ad? Whoo!
Trump promised NRA members he'd have their back. But when Second Amendment rights came under attack, Trump abandoned us and stood with liberal Democrats.
Our side. You guys, half of you are so afraid of the NRA. We have to fight them every once in a while. That's okay.
Some of you people are petrified of the NRA. You can't be petrified. They have great power over you people. They have less power over me. What do I need?
That is why I have called for red flag laws.
Or might take the firearms first and then go to court. I like taking the guns early. Take the guns first, go through due process second.
He and I introduced another assault weapons bill.
Diane, you have some very good ideas. Diane, if you could add what you have also, and I think you can, into the bill.
Yeah. Joe, are you ready?
Can you do that? Joe, can you do that? Pat, can you add?
If you help.
Well, no, I'll help, but can you add what Amy and what Diane have? Can we add them in? We're talking about rules and regulations for purchasing. We're talking about changing an age from 18 to 21. I mean, I say that it should all be at 21. We do strong background checks. We're getting rid of the bump stocks.
Trump cut and run like a coward. Trump, the gun grabber, doesn't deserve a second chance.
Holy cow. That is just, well, literally gunning for the guy. So no one should think that DeSantis isn't in this race. I don't care if it comes from a PAC or whatever it is. DeSantis is, of course, fully and wholly in this race. But the other part of this story is this poll that came out. Look at how DeSantis is beating Biden, but Biden's beating Trump. My gosh. Yeah. DeSantis leads, Trump doesn't lead. It's April. DeSantis is not declared. And the poll that was put out had 500 registered voters, not likely voters, and a margin of error of 4.4%. Anyone out there touting that poll is out of their mind. They're nuts. Look, is it Trump versus DeSantis? Of course it is. It's DeSantis versus Trump. I don't care how you want to put it, but you got to take a look at reality. That gun ad is hard hitting. That is a punch to the face. The polling's embarrassing nonsense. It's ridiculous. And that, while that polling may move somebody off of Biden to DeSantis, the ad may move somebody off of Biden to DeSantis. The ad does not move anybody off of Trump to DeSantis. Zero. The Trump supporter's set, guys. The Trump supporter is set. They are not changing. The question is, can they be set enough without any cracking, without any fracturing, to get him through a primary? That's the question. That's the whole question. Nothing else even begins to come close. Can they do this? Can the Trump supporter get this done through the primary? Yeah. Yeah, they can. You better bet they can. Of course they can. Why would I make an assumption? Why would anybody else make an assumption that a Trump supporter is going to somehow crack? Why would you think that they're going to get peeled off? Something would have to happen, and it's something monumental, because if it hasn't happened yet, with all the things that have happened to Trump, regarding Trump, surrounding Trump, Trump's personality, etc., it's not going to happen. So why wait for it? That is a real fight. And then there is the Katie Porter versus Piers Morgan fight. This was a good one. And this happened over there in real time with Bill Maher. And this was about Riley Gaines, the swimmer, an actual woman who swam against Leah Thomas, a man, not an actual woman. And she has been on tour, if you will. I actually had the chance to interview her a little more than a month ago, and talking about this experience of having to swim against somebody who it's unfair to swim against, the whole locker room conversation. Riley Gaines is standing up. This idea that we allow men to claim that they're women and allow them to compete in these sports is radical, is dangerous, and most importantly, it is hateful, right? It's hateful of women. It is fully, completely, and totally misogynist. It is a misogynist viewpoint. You're saying that women should take the back seat. You're saying that women should lay down and take it. When you see Megan Rapinoe and Sue Bird, basketball player Megan Rapinoe, U.S. women's soccer, and they're signing this letter. We disagree with Congress. We believe that trans athletes should compete. From feminist to misogynist in less than a generation. Kids, that's damn special. That is dang special right there. I mean, that's something else, because it's exactly what's happened. They went from this claim that women need to be treated equally and women deserve equal pay and women deserve this and women deserve that, to all of a sudden saying women don't even deserve to play on the same field. That's from feminist to misogynist in less than a generation. But there was Representative Katie Porter, who has had the worst week. You know, she's running for Senate. She wants Dianne Feinstein's seat. Dianne Feinstein is not running for re-election, even though they're trying to get her to resign because, well, I guess she's lived out her usefulness. Oh, it could be because that she clearly is deteriorating. Her cognitive ability is gone. It has been so for well over a year, maybe the 2 years, possibly 3. And at that time, Democrats didn't care at all. Now, all of a sudden, they care. It's like one day they'll care about John Fetterman. That day is just not today, when he's clearly hurting. Don't ask me why they're gross. I'm not that. There's a reason you and I are not them, because we would never do this to another human being. This is sick and twisted and altogether diseased, what it is that we're seeing. But Katie Porter has had a horrible week. She went on Stephen Colbert's show, and she's like, you have no idea how hard it is to show up every day and have Marjorie Taylor Greene as a colleague. What's wrong with you? That's your goal. You're going to hawk your book, talk about running for Senate, and attack Marjorie Taylor Greene, and this is considered what? Endearing? You looked petty. You looked bitter. You look angry. You always come across as petty and bitter and angry. There you are, the House, voting for a speaker, and you're reading a book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Blank. That's what's right there on the cover. You're reading it. You're so above the room. It doesn't make you look cool. It makes you look like a jerk, like a disconnected jerk. So you've got that terrible appearance there. Then you've got this story about her divorce, right? She had gotten a divorce, and you think, oh, what did the guy do? Well, there are great stories about her. When I say great, I mean, like, my gosh, you wouldn't believe it. I don't think they're great. Dropping a pot of boiling potatoes on her former husband. That's literally from the documents. And he's like, oh yeah, this all happened. He's not backing down at all. So now it's almost beyond the he said, she said. Some of it is so detailed that you're like, who makes that up? Like, who actually would go out there and say, this is not real. No, this sounds very, very real. Ridiculously real, but nothing compares to her being on Bill Maher show over the weekend, and Piers Morgan is there, and they're talking about Riley Gaines. And Riley Gaines, so we're clear, is doing incredible work. She has been incredibly honest, incredibly open. She is reaching out to people. She's connecting. And what are they doing on college campuses? Attacking her, vilifying her, calling her names. And at San Francisco State University, where this happened, where she got physically attacked, the school's like, good on the students. They're standing up for themselves. You send your kid to San Francisco State University at your own peril. Meanwhile, talking about it on Bill Maher's show.
We talked about people, using things to kind of get likes and get clicks.
That's not what she's doing.
It's not?
I've got no truck for Riley Gaines personally, but all I've seen her do is stand up for women's rights to fairness and equality.
Well,
she actually competed against Leah Thomas, and it was obviously unfair. Leah Thomas won one of the races in the NCAA championships by 50 seconds against a bunch of biological females who simply couldn't keep up. That cannot be right. It cannot be fair.
That is something.
That is absolutely, positively correct. They cannot keep up. It's not that Riley Gaines can't beat me in a swimming match. She can kick my ass. That's not the argument. That's not the point. The point is, against a pro, she cannot win. And she, by the way, knows this. She is fully aware of this. But Katie Porter is indignant. It's not all about her and about her clicks and her likes. No, it's not all about her and her clicks and her likes.
I think our sporting bodies should be dealing with. And by the way, Riley is speaking up for herself, and that is her prerogative, and I respect her free speech.
I think she's speaking up for pretty much every female athlete in the world.
I mean, wasn't that the point of Title IX? Title IX in the early 70s was something that was it was a major event in feminism, that we finally have this law that says at colleges, right, and I think high schools too, but definitely colleges, women's sports have to be given equal to men's sports so that women aren't and this led to the WNBA and lots of other stuff. This seems to be the opposite of that. It seems to be so many instances, I think, where wokeness is the opposite of what I grew up as liberalism. Liberalism was, let's give the women an equal shot. This is let's put a male in the swimming pool with the women. I don't get it.
Nobody gets it. Now, you got to be able to take it to its proper places and its proper steps, and understand that so much of this is the next step in a control conversation, the next step in trying to break down society conversation. You will have people who will laugh and mock, oh, you're talking about communists, oh, you're talking about the Marxists, oh, Tony, oh, so-and-so. It's still factual. If you want to have your ability to control, you have to break down the things, the systems that prevent that control from happening. Why do you think we see this in schools so often? Why do you think we see administrators lying, as they did in my beloved Indiana, and just not every school district, but school districts across the state? They're lying to parents about what it is they're teaching, trying to hide it from them, keeping it on the down low, keeping it from being a discussion, changing names to hide it from parents because they don't want to discuss that they're talking critical race curriculum and other things. They don't want to discuss how they're letting kids change their pronouns and encouraging them to do that. That is all about trying to cleave the parent from the child, because the parent is in the way as an institution, the parenting institution, marriage institution, in the way of people being able to, who want to have a different society, being able to have more control over your kids in order to make that society happen. This is not anything new. This is standard operating procedure stuff. We have seen this again and again and again. And when we're seeing it now, people are having a hard time with the connective tissue. They shouldn't have a hard time with the connective tissue. This is pretty easy stuff to see, because we've seen enough of it that you shouldn't be somebody who says, yeah, but no. Are you going to believe your truthful eyes, or are you going to believe their lying mouths? You've seen it. You understand what's happening. Now all you got to do is admit it. All you got to do is accept the fact that John Galt is right. All you got to do is admit the thing. Nothing more, nothing less. You just got to admit the thing. And the thing is that what we're seeing in this society is very much about the desire to destroy what this society has. Because if you can break down those structures, you can have more control over those beings. What other reason is there to think that a 12-year-old should have agency? A 12-year-old should be able to decide their own medical decisions. A 12-year-old can decide when to have an abortion. No adult should be able to say otherwise. A 12-year-old should be able to decide their gender. No adult should be able to say otherwise. And then, well, a 12-year-old can decide who they love, of course, and how. Why? Why are you looking at me like that? That's the natural progression. And then all of that is about the cleaving away of the parent and parental responsibility. What value is the parent? All they do is make the babies. We, the society, raise them. Remember the whole conversation of it takes a village? Remember who was it? Harris Perry. Was it Melissa Harris Perry? Was that her name? Who said, we raise the children. We raise the children. She was very, very much at the start, at the quick of this idea, saying that of what value is the parent, of what value, of what need, of what necessity is the parent. Riley Gaines is doing an incredibly good job of fighting against these things. And for that, we should be outrageously thankful. And we should certainly be supportive. By the way, how Piers Morgan wrapped it up.
It's crazy. And meanwhile, trans people who genuinely want to compete at athletics and swimming or whatever it may be, they're the ones who are suffering here. They need to be found a way to compete fairly and justly.
Well, what's your answer then? I
think there's one or two answers. I think they either compete against their biological sex, as many of them did before, or you create an entirely new category for a transgender athlete. And then they're able to compete fairly. But what you cannot do is continue to allow more and more trans athletes to start decimating women's records, in some cases, irrevocably. It's just not fair.
You would think that would be a rational point of view. I'm not so sure I create a whole new league. I start by saying no. I start by saying no to the competition part. I am not, when we're talking about adults, children, I have no quarter. The answer is no. No puberty blockers, no surgeries, none of that kind of stuff. If you love kids, sometimes you say no, and sometimes you got to wait it out. And kids very often do change their minds. You got to not be angry at these kids. You can't be screaming and yelling at these kids. You can't be engaged in derision against these kids. I won't do it. But the parent is something a little bit different, for sure. But when we talk about adults, you make a decision, right? You're gonna live your life this way. I'm not gonna tell you how to live. I don't have to understand it. I don't have to get it. I can think it's not good for you, but you can live the way you want. I don't think anybody has to bend over backwards for you. And certainly nobody has to let you compete. And certainly nobody has to create another league for you. I don't believe that has to be done personally. But if others want to do it, I'm not going to stop them. Knock yourselves out. Then, of course, there is the economy. The economy that we're dealing with right now simply is ugly. And I'm talking about world-class ugly. It's awful. It as far as I'm concerned, we're talking flat out dangerous right here. And it is so because I don't know how we can even begin to think that we're not in the recession and well into it. Yet the Secretary of the Treasury, Janet Yellin, Treasury Secretary, yeah, I got that right. She's out there saying, you know what? Maybe the banks are right. Maybe what the banks need to do is slow down on their spending, not their spending, their lending. Slow down on your lending. And then what will happen is they won't have to raise interest rates. They won't have to raise interest rates, and therefore everything will be better, and the economy will be better, and you'll be better off, and I'll be better off. And no part of that is true. Let me bring in Dr. Matt Will right here, economist at the University of Indianapolis. I heard Janet Yellin say this the other day. I actually read it, and I said, look, if banks aren't going to lend, right, then banks aren't going to lend, and that's the way it's going to be. But now you're encouraging this. You're encouraging a restriction on capital outlays, a restriction on capital spending. You're going to absolutely further tank where this economy is. Why not just say, hey, how about we stop spending on the government side so we can make it easier on the private sector to go about building a business?
Tony, okay, yes. What more can I say? You hit the nail on the head. When you sent me this notice about what she said, I didn't believe you at first, I got to tell you, because this is totally contradictory to everything that you teach in business. Every business owner in this country knows what she's saying is wrong. But let's go back just a little bit and explain that to run a business, people need money. You have to build your factory, produce your product, create your services. You need money. You get it from debt and equity. And so to say to businesses, no, don't get money to run your business, Tony, this makes no sense whatsoever. There is a logic to what she's doing. It goes back to the battle you and I talked about regarding Biden versus Powell and the inflation battle, but it makes no sense whatsoever to say, let's shut down the economy to control inflation.
The purpose, though, like if we were to take it a step back and ask, if banks were to do less lending, would we be better off? Like, would the economy be better off if banks were doing less lending?
Well, Tony, no, the answer is no. But what her logic is, which is totally convoluted, it makes no sense to me whatsoever, is it will reduce the amount of cash in the economy. That's true. That the way cash gets into the economy is the Federal Reserve Board funnels it through banks. They print money, they funnel it through banks into the hands of businesses. The other way is federal government deficit spending. There are two ways to get cash into the economy. We have to reduce that cash, Tony, to control inflation. And she's saying, no, we're not going to control our spending. Instead, we're just going to force businesses to take less money from the Fed. Tony, this boggles the mind, because that's going to slow down the engine. So it's like a flywheel. You're going to slow down the economy, which is going to create less stuff, which is going to create more inflation. I mean, what planet is she from?
I think I have her audio here. Dr. Matt Will, economist, University of Indianapolis. Let's see if you can hear this. Let me see if I got this right.
The global financial system has generally proven quite resilient. As I mentioned, the United States is doing extremely well economically, with inflation coming down and a strong labor market, and Europe is doing better than was feared at the time of our last meeting. So I wouldn't overdo the negativism about the global economy,
So according to Janet Yellin, country's doing great, Europe's doing great, everything is great. Why be negative? You know, it's all just absolutely perfect. Is it all just peaches and cream out there, sir?
You know, Tony, Janet Yellen is the person that just keeps giving and giving and giving. Remember her comment before the Senate when she said, yes, we're going to bail out Chinese investors. And yes, we want you to move your money out of middle banks into the jumbo banks. And now she's saying that everything is great, Tony. The economy is booming. Does she not read the headlines of the Wall Street Journal, of the New York Times? Does she not see that inflation is not under control? The report that came out last week, core inflation is still annualized 4.8%. Is that under control? The target's 2%.
We should discuss we should discuss that core inflation, the CPI, right? The consumer price index. And you take a look at those core numbers and you realize that we are still in a very rough and tumble place. And didn't seem like the markets really reacted in a way where they were like, we're on it, people. Things are on their way down. Hot diggity. Call Ma, tell her to make a cake, right? There was no great joy in those markets. It was one of the first times where I didn't see any harsh reaction. You could disagree with me if you choose. I saw a shrug, like, yeah, this is where we are. This is who we are. This is what is.
Tony, that's exactly what you see in the markets right now. They're just in a wait and see mode. They kind of like this whole stalemate. I told you before, markets love when Washington does nothing, and they're kind of waiting for the June battle over the debt ceiling to see if actually the Republicans can control spending. So I think between now and then, you're going to see very stable markets. We've seen the volatility in the markets be very flat for the last week, Tony. I think that's going to continue because they want to see, will the Republicans succeed in pulling back spending, or will Biden win the battle? That's going to be an interesting fight, and I think that's what the market's waiting for.
Biden winning the battle about spending, right? You've been making this argument for a long time. If Biden cared about Jerome Powell at all, if Biden cared about the economy at all, if Biden actually was a responsible president of the United States, he would take a look at government spending and say, let's pause this, let's stop that, let's cut this, let's move that. Put an end to some of these things, and the government spending would mean less cash into the system, and the less cash would allow inflation to come down and for things to normalize. When you talk about that fight, Dr. Matt Will, economist, University of Indianapolis, that's what you're talking about, but you know it isn't going to come. Who in the world on Wall Street actually thinks Joe Biden is going to come to his senses on that?
Well, Tony, I don't know that they think he's going to come to a senses necessarily, as they think there's going to be a battle and they don't know exactly who's going to win the battle. I mean, that's what Wall Street is doing right now. They're sitting on the sidelines waiting. What Janet Yellin said doesn't help things. She's setting the stage saying, no, we want bigger government and smaller business. Tony, you just played the clip. She said that came right out of her mouth. I want bigger government and smaller business. I think I'm living in the bizarro world right now.
You and me both, my dear brother. I had texted you today. I texted you a hypothetical, and I said the words. If you had I went bigger than Mitt Romney. I think I said, if you had a spare $100,000, right, $100,000, and you're looking at this economy, you're looking at this insanity. What would you invest in? Like where would you be putting your money? Would you be putting your money in the market? Where would you be putting your money? And I should actually like put it up. I should like post it. As I'm ask you this question, I'm looking at 6-month treasuries, which are over 5% on the interest rate. And your response was, I'd invest in 6-month treasuries. Seriously, you're not in the market. You'd be in this.
Tony, I'm embarrassed to say that. I mean, I'm embarrassed because it's true. I mean, how bad is it, Tony, when I tell someone like yourself or someone who asks for my investment advice and I say, give your money to the government instead of investing in a business that's going to grow the economy. But Tony, right now, that's your best investment. That is what Biden has created. He's created this environment where it's better for you to give your money to the government than it is to invest in a productive, value-generating enterprise. I'm sorry, but that's where we're at.
One of the things that I get asked by small business owners is a question like this one. Anthony Mina is the owner of Anthony Mina's Menswear in Indianapolis. He's a tailor. He sells suits. He happens to be my tailor. He's my guy. When you see me looking good on TV or anywhere, that's him. How does that work out for me? I'm a small business. Are you telling me she's wanting to put businesses like mine out? And the answer is, I don't think she wants to put a business like yours out. Like, I don't think that's the objective. That's just the result. The result is it's harder for the small business owner, Dr. Will, to have access to the capital to be able to grow a business, because she's saying it's good that banks want to be out there and doing less. It's good that banks want to be out there and are not spending, I should say, investing the way they were before. This is what's smart. This is what's valuable. I ask you, Dr. Will, is Janet Yellin putting businesses like Mina's Menswear in Indianapolis out of business?
Yes, but Tony, you got to look behind the scenes at the Biden administration. I sincerely believe that there are people below Biden and below Janet Yellin who are very interested in the government taking over the economy. They want you to not buy a car of your choice. Instead, they want you to buy a car that is subsidized by the government. They want you to not travel the way you wish to travel. They want you to travel in a way that they dictate, in a way that's subsidized by the government. They want you to have rolling brownouts rather than choose the energy source that you want.
Just so we're clear, you're talking about that EPA conversation where the EPA director, Michael Regan, was proud to announce the most stringent CAFE standards, which are the standards we put on automobiles and how they have to be fuel efficient in order to be produced. And what they basically said is, you will make electric cars. Glad we had this talk. Bye-bye.
Yes, Tony, the government wants, again, I don't know, I can't read Biden's mind, but I do know that the people that work for him are
not that tough, sir. It's ice cream and naps. Ice cream and naps. That's it.
And Corvettes. I mean, the administration, Tony, they want to control your life. This is not a capitalist administration. They do not believe in free markets and free choice. They want the government to control everything you do, your travel, your job, what you drive, what you eat. Tony, they want to control what you eat even. I'm not joking. See, you're thinking at a high level. You got to go down to the foot soldiers in this administration. They want to control your life. They would like to ban you from having, alcohol and cigars if they have their way. And they would. And they'd be on your doorstep banning those things if they had their way.
But you're making a secondary argument, and it is different in that the belief is, if you just did what they wanted you to do, your life would be better off. All right. And that plays in some very unique ways. We'll get into it. But while you brought up the electric car conversation, everyone's going to be better off if we're all electric. I mean, honestly, is there a mathematics that you or other economists have done showing that an all electric society has more value or less value?
The answer is no, Tony. But let me, it's not a yes or no, but it's mostly no, because one of the things that this administration is also doing is banning nuclear energy. Tony, if they want to go down the electric path, we should have a nuclear energy everywhere. It is the most efficient, environmentally safe energy source you can dream of, yet they're banning this. Well, you make the batteries. It's not easy to make these batteries, and disposal of the batteries is a problem. And of course, charging them in the winter is a problem. There's pluses and minuses. I don't know that we really have time to get into it, but no, electric isn't the solution for everything, but they're not even doing that properly. If you're going to do electric properly, at least give us nuclear energy so we could produce the energy we need for these electric cars.
What Janet Yellen is proposing, does it put small businesses out? If she's pushing for less credit being extended, small businesses go out. I mean, that's an immediate effect in your view?
Yes, she is asking for government to get bigger and business to get smaller. It's as clear as day, Tony.
Dr. Matt Will, economist at the University of Indianapolis. I appreciate you taking the time to be with us. I did want to get into the whole Bud Light thing, but I'm going to have to save that. I'm going to have to save that one, guys. It's just the way it goes. I can't thank you enough for being here, being part of the show. And my thanks to Americans for Prosperity, my sponsor, economic liberty, free speech. Gotta love all of those things. Go find a chapter near you. AmericansForProsperity.org. I gotta go do a radio show. So join me. Go to WIBC.com and you can live stream the show. We'll be getting into this subject and a whole bunch more. So join me on the radio starting at noon, and I will catch you then, guys.